welcome to the Underground, my little underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. This week on the show, we have a very special guest all the way from Canada, Sebastien Grainger, the singer and drummer of the Canadian punk duo, along with Jesse Keeler, the bassist, Death from Above, 1979. And today on the show, we reflect on 20 years of their monumental debut album, You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. And Sebastien is not necessarily nostalgic about this time period because he feels like he's a totally different person than he was 20 years ago, like we all were. But I did get in to share some fond memories of recording this album. And Sebastien also has a very interesting perspective on releasing music in 2024. So please help me welcome the great Sebastien Grainger of Death from Above, 1979, to My Little Underground.
My little underground.
Sebastien, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule of your huge 20th anniversary You're a Woman, I'm a Machine tour. First, I just want to say congratulations on 20 years on a very important album to me, and I'm sure to you, Jesse, and Al as well. So how's the tour going, and how are you feeling? And I'm sure this is a time of great celebration.
Uh, Tour is going great. Let's see, we basically started this tour in April. It's kind of spread out, so it's not so intense. Like it doesn't. I'm at home now. Um, we kind of tour in chunks now. We don't tour straight across for weeks and weeks. We usually do about 2 weeks on and then a month off. So as far as like a lifestyle pace, it's pretty easy to manage. And the shows have been, I mean, they've been really, it's fun, man. It's fun to play the record. It's fun to see the reactions that people have to it. Um, and a record is a record. It's a moment in time. And in that sense, for the artist, it's in the past. It's kind of a dead thing, right? It's something you made when you were a fully different person, on a carbon level, many times over. And so to play it live is to give it life, and a life that I think it deserves. Um, the first era of the band was pretty short. It felt like a long time in the moment, but when you look back at it, those first 4 or 5 years, I suppose, um, which were the nucleus of the whole thing. Like without that, if we started in 2011, it wouldn't have done what it did starting 10 years previous. So it's nice to honor that time. I will say though that the looking back part of it, the retrospective part of it at the beginning of the year was a pretty heavy burden for me personally. I didn't enjoy the nostalgic factor of it and the kind of inhabiting that part of my life again. I didn't really enjoy, but definitely the live. It's just a visceral, kinetic thing that you can't help but revel in. So I'm. It's been a pleasure to do it. Yeah.
That's interesting you say that because you have like the three re-records, right? Turn It Out, Romantic Rights, Going Steady, right? And you said, yeah, when you finish recording the album, it's like it's done. It's like a dead thing, and you were a different person at that time. What made you want to kind of broke you out of that sort of nostalgic state of like, oh, I don't want to revisit that? What brought you out of that to kind of revisit these songs?
Um, it was revisiting the songs that conjured it up. There was I'm not a backwards looking person, and neither is Jesse. We're very much like forward thinkers, and so I didn't anticipate it being a difficult task. I thought of it in a very sort of pragmatic way. Let's take another stab at this record. Let's try to do things technically, things in a technical sense that we wouldn't have done back then. Let's approach it the way we approach records now. Um, I thought I thought of it in a very sort of, A B sort of linear way. And then when we started to do it, and the original plan was to um, record it in real time and put out one song a month, and that's what we did for the beginning of the year. Obviously, that's why there's 3 songs up. Um, that process was far more laborious in a technical sense and also in an emotional sense that I wasn't prepared for. I did not. I just thought it would be easy to reapproach the songs, um, because they're not difficult songs to play. They're pretty basic. We wrote them when we were not as skilled as we are now. So you think, oh well, we'll just and we've been playing them for years and years and years. So you thought you could just sit and play them, um, but it wasn't until Romantic Rights really, I mean, which is the second song, um, and that song, it's such a weird one because it was it was kind of perpendicular to what we were doing stylistically until that point, and it was also vocally and lyrically delivered in a very simple way that was actually the we wrote the song melodically to be re-triggered by a vocoder, and so when I performed it, it was a very monotone. There was basically no melody in the verses, and we were going to go back and play it on the keyboard, but we never ended up doing that. We just kept this very basic performance, and and when I was trying to record it, you'd think that would be very easy because it's a very easy part, but it was actually there's a lot of nuance in the delivery of it on the original recording, all the breaths and the way that I approached it and kind of the attitude, and then I had to inhabit that attitude again, which is not I'm not there now. I'm 45. I'm not 25 or 22 or whatever I was when I recorded it. So um, I had to kind of summon that spirit, and at the same time, we were making merch and stuff and putting together whatever pictures, looking at old pictures, and I was looking at pictures because my wife, uh, we've been together the entire time, and she was taking pictures of us. We weren't together back, like, specifically back then, but we met through the punk rock scene and through her taking pictures. So I've got a ton of photography from that time. Um, and so I was looking through all those photos, and I was brought back to my old apartment, back to my ex-girlfriend, back to all the clothes I was wearing, and um, when you look at it from an objective perspective, from a fan's perspective or from a sort of whatever cultural, however you want to describe it, you look at us back then, you're like, oh, that was cool, the tight jeans, the Mickey Mouse t-shirt, whatever, the long hair, whatever it is, it's kind of like in a capsule, and it's kind of iconic. But as the person that lived it, to go back and have to experience that, I found it very difficult because it's hard to relate to that point, and it's not a sexy time for me. It wasn't a, I didn't really enjoy making that record the first time around. I found it stressful to be in the studio. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like an imposter. There were all these things, layers and layers and layers, that I'm just not there anymore, right? So, um, and I don't like to pathologize myself, uh, in a way, and to look back, I was like, oh man, it was more difficult than it needed to be, in a
Right.
weird way. Um, I didn't anticipate that. So, uh, yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Like I think that's it's interesting because I think I'm in my own life I'm the same way. Like I don't like to really look back, but I also like to kind of reflect. Right.
Sure.
Um, when it comes to like your own I'm machine and in the recording process early on, do you have any sort of like fond memories that you can like pull out, even if it's a little things between you, Jesse, and Al during that period of time?
I mean, just that we did it was cool. It's that we
Yeah.
made this thing that we didn't have really any expectations for beyond the small little energy that we built around the first EP and around playing live. We did feel like there was an energy around the band, but there was no real audience. It wasn't like there were thousands of people anticipating anything from us. Um, there were, that we made all that music with such, you know, with not a lot of stuff. Like at the time, I remember my dad coming over. Jesse and I were living together, and we had all of our gear. We played in another band called Femme Fatale, which was like a big, at one point 7-piece hardcore band. So there's a lot of gear, and we were preparing to play shows, so all the gear was kind of in the living room. My dad came over to drop me off or something, and and he looked at all the gear and he was like, "The Beatles made the White Album," or he's like, "The Beatles made Abbey Road on less equipment than this. Where's my Abbey Road?" So I don't know. It's funny that we, you know, that's kind of an argument against it. But we didn't have a lot of resources. We didn't have a lot of knowledge. I'd never really made a record before, and so for that to be basically my first record, Jesse had made records in the punk world before. I'd never really recorded. I'd recorded on my own with a 4-track, but I'd never had um, any real ambition to reach anybody with it, or any notion that I could reach anybody with music in that way. Um, so the fact that we did it, there was also, we made it in this recording studio called Chemical Sound in Toronto that was in an alley behind a strip club. So there's lots of memories of, you know, smoking cigarettes between takes, and there's like a couple of strippers in their winter coats, like having a smoke and kind of, you know, giving each other a nod, like, it's a living kind of thing. We're over here making a rock and roll record, and they're over there, making a buck. So um, there were also a few moments I remember um, where I did some vocal stuff that some harmonies and some kind of vocal approaches that I remember doing it and thinking, like, did that just come out of my face? Like, I couldn't believe that sound came out of me.
In a good
And
way or bad way?
in a good way, and kind of a Bon Scott, this weird kind of like sound that I just didn't know I could do. And I remember a few of those takes feeling like, huh, that was interesting. And then Al being like, we got it, I think we got it. Um, so yeah, there's a few very specific moments like that I remember. There was also a day that I came in, and I didn't have a lot of knowledge about how to make records or how to record or anything, and I wasn't that interested in being in the studio. I mean, I'm in my own studio now, so I've definitely over the years learned to appreciate and obsess over those things. But at the time, I wasn't that interested in it. And I remember walking in, and Jesse and Al had been in there. And Jesse had an idea, and he put it down. He put down a demo with a drum machine and a bass guitar, and it was a song, "Blood on Our Hands." And I remember thinking it was so cool sounding. I couldn't believe it. Like, this is our band, Like, I hadn't played on it yet, but I was like, wow, this is what our band sounds like. Wow, that's cool. And then not knowing what to sing on it, and then I don't know if it was my idea or Jesse or Al, or just like, why don't you just sing along, sing the bass melody in the chorus, and I just sang along, and it was like locked in. It just sounded so. It just clicked. It was like a little magic moment. Yeah, I've been having trouble re-recording that song for that exact reason, because it felt so locked in cosmically at the time, that trying to replicate that, it's It's not just a song, it's a moment as well. Um, there's this uh, what's his name? Do you know John Bryan, the musician who he produced like Fiona Apple records, and he produced a bunch of stuff on Kanye's early stuff. He did a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson music, like on soundtracks.
Wow.
Kind of a Beatlesy music guy, like an LA music producer dude. Um, he had this interview where he was speaking about the difference between composed music and performed music, and the examples he used were, um, I think it was Nirvana in Bloom or Lithium, I forget which one, and then like Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. And when you sit down and play them on a piano, um, the Nirvana music is very complicated. The melodies and the counter melodies and the way that the chords stack up, and the chord voicings and all that stuff. And then you play the Led Zeppelin thing. It's just kind of like hitting one note on the piano. So it has almost everything to do with how the thing is delivered. Where if you just want to play some Nirvana on the piano, it's going to sound great. If you want to play some Led Zeppelin, it might not sound too great. Um, so there are, our approach now to music, in the past couple of records, I'm aware of those things. The outrages now, a lot of the melodies were written on a piano, on Stevie Wonder's piano. Like
I
this.
love that song.
And so, but there was no consideration for that kind of thing when we made Your One on Machine, which is why it's cool. It's so much about the delivery and the performance and the attitude. Anyhow, I'm rambling.
When you talk about our ages now, like
Mhm.
I've been thinking about it since you guys dropped it. Like the vocal passage and the outro, it's
Uh-huh.
just outstanding. Like I
Yeah.
listen back to it a lot. Every time I hear the song, I rewind it. Like that is just tremendous. It's really good stuff.
Thank you.
When you talk about, because I'm watching, I've seen it a few times, over the years. Life After Death from Above,
Mhm.
1979, and you alluded to the fact that You're a Woman, I'm a Machine, the vocals weren't quote unquote natural. What do you mean by that?
Unnatural.
Yeah.
Um, well, I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to sing. The sound that I heard in my head was not what was coming out of my face, and so live I would basically. I mean, was singing, but I was screaming a lot. Um, kind of choking out live a lot, which was very frustrating. And so when we made the record, um, I don't know if there was one song that I sang like front to back. We would do, because I'd gas out pretty. I didn't know I had no technique. Um, I would be like, oh, I want it to sound like this thing, but it was like it's like a unsustainable approach. So I would do line for line sometimes. Some songs I would sing a line, take a breath, sing the third line, take a breath, sing the fifth line, and then go back and do the second line and the fourth line. So I was kind of doing every other line. Kind of, it's a bit of a. I mean, a lot of people do. It's a studio. You're just trying to get the thing done. Um, but uh, in a sense, I was playing a role. So like fast forward to doing those songs now. um I was in the studio a few weeks ago, and we were recording the song You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. And I didn't warm up, I didn't even think about it. We just, we had the track lined up. I was with my buddy Adrian, who was helping me record. He set up a mic, there was no stress. He hit record, and I just went in and sang the song front to back, did a few takes, and he was like, "Fuck, that sounds great. That was great. That was great. That was great." And then after we done, I sat in the booth and I was like, there's not, I could not have done that 20 years ago. I didn't do it. I sang it line for line, and we would cut and I would punch in, punch in, punch in, punch in just to be able to do it. I just didn't have any technique or any strength in that department. So, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. We had an idea of what we wanted to sound like, and it didn't matter to us if we couldn't pull it off. We wanted to sound like this. So it was kind of a constructed album.
Did you
Uh,
did you gain that technique from vocal lessons, or you took the vocal lessons and you kind of sort of like practice or change your routines at all?
like now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
post
yeah.
your
I mean,
Little
I
Drum
did.
Machine.
I started taking lessons in my 30s, and because I just wanted to be able to. There's nothing better for me than playing a show and feeling like I sang well. Like it's just there's so much freedom in it, and um, I'm more accepting of the my strengths and weaknesses now than I ever was, for sure. Um, I get that in back in the day there was something visceral and kinetic about the show and about the band, and um, the rawness of it was part of the attraction, and I get that, and I think we still have some of that. I think we have most of that, actually. But there's nothing like nailing it. There's just nothing like nailing it. And so, yeah, I did lessons with a couple of different teachers, and I just have a uh, more dedicated practice. I don't drink on the road. At least I don't drink when we have shows. I'll have a couple of drinks after a show. If we don't have a show the next day, I don't I don't fuck around. I mean, like, I don't go out really. I don't sit around and talk. I sit around alone. It's very lonely. But I would rather sing for 90 minutes and nail it um, than be up there choking. So it's
Don't
more
want to
important to
choke.
me.
Don't want to
Yeah.
choke at all.
Nope.
Um, I want to talk about some of the lyrics on Your Own on Machine, and kind of like you have kind of serious personal stuff, and then like a lot of fun and silly songs.
Mhm.
Like Cold War was about your parents' divorce. Then you have a
Sure.
lot of fun like sexual songs like Pull Out and Sexy Results. Did you feel like you needed to have a balance of fun and personal introspection at all? Was that planned, or was it just happened to be that way?
I can't imagine. I mean, it's hard to go back to that frame of mind, but I wasn't trying to do anything. Like, I wasn't trying to have a balance. I was just the only thing I was trying to do was finish the record. Just make it. There was I forget what song it was. Um, we went in to record it. We had the music done, and we went in to do the vocals, and Al has me set up in the live room, and I do a take, and he's kind of like, "That's it, that's like, you don't. There's no chorus." I was like, "Oh fuck, I guess I could." There's a lot of instrumental moments in the song,
Yeah,
which there's kind of still are on that record. Oddly, they're not as dense as vocally as the later records where we were working with producers, and they were really like, "You're not going to sing over that part. That's a weird thing to do." But I do remember Al being like, "You should probably write some more stuff for that." I was struggling to finish it. And we took the hard drive to Montreal and worked in the studio there. We were living in Toronto at the time, and we kind of took a trip to get out of the city and get some perspective. And I did a lot of the vocals, and a lot of the lyrics just sitting in a on the floor in the studio in Montreal, just kind of like making it better. I have my lyric book from that time,
wow.
and it's so strange to look at it and see. I mean, it's a miracle that it that we've made it. It's a miracle that I got to where I got. I don't think those lyrics are great, by the way, but to see, because you can see the evolution of those lyrics in the lyric book, like where it started and how the inception of it, uh, or- and where where it ended up. Um, and when I look at it, I'm like, it's a miracle that I don't know. It just seems like so unlikely because some of those lyrics, man, are literally from songs I wrote in high school. The song "Turn It Out" is it? Yeah. I forget which one it is. There's this one song. I think it's "Turn It Out" that the first verse is from like a blues song I wrote when I was 18 years old. I recorded on a cassette tape. And it was just me, like, kind of into, getting into the blues, I guess, at that age, as you do. Um, and I wrote this, whatever, 12-bar blues song. So some of the songs on that record are from high school. Like, so strange.
No wonder you just kind of want to move on after
Yeah,
you.
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
So I want to talk about kind of your drumming endurance because I've seen you live over the years, and I'm just curious, like, how the hell do you maintain stamina, singing and drumming like you do on stage?
I would say it's just come to a point that it's just kind of a natural thing now. Like it was obvious, it was far more difficult when we started. Um, I don't know. It's just, if I haven't done it in a while, it's really hard. It's really hard, especially the songs, the sort of up tempo, like Romantic Rights. I guess I'm trying to think of another one. Cold. There's a couple of other ones that are these kind of disco songs that have 16th notes on the hi hats. 16th notes. Disco is 120. It's not a fast tempo. Romantic Rights is 150 or something, so it's pretty fast. And um, if I haven't done it in a while, when I play it, I think, how am I possibly going to do this? Like, there's no way I can do this, especially with the way, we're playing the record in sequence. It's the second song, but after a show, it's fine. It's something. It's just muscle memory. You're kind of like, when you're not rehearsed or you're not warmed up to it. It seems like a tall order, but I think it's just conditioning over the years, and just staying. We haven't really stopped touring, except for, you know, I mean, we took time to make is for Lovers. 2019 we worked on that, and then the pandemic happened, so we sat on it, and then didn't start playing it till 2021, 22. I don't remember the timeline anymore, but um, coming back after not having played in a year or two was very difficult. The first thing I did, there's a friend of mine, Sammy Goldberg. He plays in, he's got his own records. He plays in the band Broken Social Scene as well. And he made a really cool record a few years ago, and he asked me to come sing one of the songs, or sing a cover and a Death from Above song. He was playing a show in Toronto, and I went to rehearse with his band, and I I was just singing. I wasn't even playing drums yet. We had shows booked like 3 months later, and I was like almost gonna pass out just from just from singing. It's like, how am I gonna do
Damn.
this? How am I gonna play drums and sing? This is gonna be insane. I thought it's over for me. And then once the show happened, that show, I sang 2 songs. It was great. Felt really good. And then, you rehearse, and it was fine. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just conditioning.
Wow. So do you feel like, because you started the band so long ago, right?
Mhm.
Do you feel like kind of age has caught up with you in performing live? Like, is there certain things that you don't do anymore, like you did 20, 30 years ago, or there's some new aspect to your live performance regimen that you've added in as you've gotten older?
Well, definitely, like the stuff I mentioned earlier. I don't drink
Yeah.
I try to eat pretty clean. I also, touring for us now is very easy in the sense that, we usually tour on a bus. I don't, there's not, the travel days aren't difficult. I don't have really much to do, and I can just focus on the show, and I conserve my energy a lot. Um, so those things. We also, this is maybe 2012, 13, not long after we started playing again. We were playing in Europe, and we'd always been very reluctant to do any live recordings just because we felt like there was something kinetic about the live show. And we'd heard board tapes of the band before, and it didn't sound great, and it's sloppy and fast and kind of like screamy, and we never thought it was representative of how we wanted to portray the music. And so we were very reluctant to do anything like that. And we were playing in Amsterdam, and Art TV came to shoot the show. And I said, yeah, we'll broadcast it as long as we have approval on the recording. So we did the show, and then they gave me right away a DVD of the show, and I went and sat on the bus and played it. And we were playing so fast, I could not believe it. So I was sitting there tapping out the tempos, and I was like, we're playing 50, 60% faster. Even sometimes it's almost double. It was so fast. And that, as a performer, it's difficult, especially doing both things at once, the drumming and the singing, Jesse trying to play those arpeggios. And then for the audience too, it was just too fast. There was a time in 2011 or 12 when we were playing at Sasquatch Festival in the in Washington State, and we're playing, I think, either two bands right before the Foo Fighters. Like, it's a big show, okay? And we have an hour, I don't know. We got off 15 minutes earlier. We just ended we just played all our songs and we were done. We just played so fast that we just like the show was over, and the whole crew were like, you still have 15 or 20 minutes left. And we're like, it's fine. We left the stage. I didn't realize it. I mean, I knew we were playing fast anyhow. So at that point, I thought, okay, maybe we should start trying to play the songs at the tempo we wrote them. Maybe we shouldn't play them so fast. Maybe the audience doesn't want to hear the song that fast. Maybe that's a novelty. And I think it was. I think it was something that when we were an unknown band and we were coming out opening for bands or playing these punk shows or playing, bar shows with other punk bands, there's something spectacular about two sweaty guys playing really fast and really heavy and really loud. And that was definitely the energy that pushed the band forward. But to sustain that over the ages, but also when an audience now is familiar with the music and they come to see it, I know as a fan, if I go see a band play and they're playing, you watch some live Bob Dylan stuff, and yeah, it's cool. It's a nice interpretation, but you don't want to hear the record, but you want to hear the song the way you like it. Um, so we started playing, having count offs, like metronome count offs, and we started playing to a click, and we started tightening up the show in a way that I think for me, it makes it better. It makes it more reliable. And I think the audience I hope they appreciate it. Over the past few years, we've had people come up. We had our first manager came to see us play in Los Angeles, in whatever that was, I forget. We were at the beginning of the year or end of last year in December. And he was there right at the very beginning, and he sent me an email the next day. He said, I came home, and I was standing in the kitchen with my wife, and I said, I can't believe I just saw the best Death from Above show I've ever seen. And it's, this is 20 years later, and he was there from the very beginning. And I agree. I think we're playing better than we've ever played.
I agree too.
So, and I think it sounds great. I think our crew's great. Everything about it to me now is more. I feel more free now. Um, I felt very, um, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it back in the day. I really didn't. Unfortunately, I was a stick in the mud too. And now I'm having a good time.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, like when I go see Death from Above now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like hearing You're a Woman on Machine. I like hearing stuff from Heads Up, but something inside of me is saying, I really want to hear Nomad. You know,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
want to hear Outrageous Now. I want to hear Free Animal. I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear Modern Guy. I want to hear what else they got cooking, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um,
Oh yeah.
that being said, like, what are you working on for 2025 and beyond? Anything you want
Um,
to share?
yeah. I mean, we still have. We are supposed to only do this 20-year anniversary until the end of this year, but Jesse's having a baby in December.
Oh, congrats.
So yeah, number 4.
Wow.
And so we had to postpone the last leg of this tour to December, and we just announced right before I got on with you, we announced some Australian dates in April. So we're gonna do that. And But our kind of approach now and doing this re-record situation was and also the Is for Lovers was a label record, but the re-record's not on a label. There's no management. There's no, it's just us. There's no industry aside from our booking, our live show. There's no industry around us now, so we're really enjoying being at the center of everything. And so in the future, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know when the next time we'll make an LP is, just because making an LP. First of all, you got to take the time to do it. You have to figure out, especially as a writer, you have to figure out what you want to say. You gotta have to have a bunch of stuff to say. You gotta have to have, you know,
Right.
10 songs worth of things to say. And the way I write is it's very reductive. It's like, okay, how do I get this big idea that I have to fit into the rock and roll stanza or whatever, like the format of, 2, 3 verses and a chorus and a bridge or whatever it is. Um, so these ideas, they occupy a lot of my mind, and then they whittle down to this thing. I'm getting better at sort of like more of a laser of just like writing the song and like, oh, that's what it's about, and like this. But um, the format of the LP as kind of a commercial offering, it, I mean, it was a result of a format. Like the LP record was developed, and you wanted to fill both sides, whatever it is, 40 minutes of music. And there's artistic approaches to it, the concept album, blah blah blah, like there's countless incredible LPs, and that's kind of the rock and roll format. But it wasn't like a musician thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write 40 minutes worth of music and put it, and I'm going to write 10 rock and roll songs, put them on a record. Rock and roll bands used to write one song, 2 songs, put out a 45, and then eventually maybe they put those 45s on a collection called the long player. But the format now is kind of is lionized as the standard of music, but it's kind of an upper class pursuit in a way. I'm not like trying to summon some class warfare like rhetoric, but to sit around and spend months working on an album. I don't have months to work on an album. I got to go out and work. I got to play shows. I've got a family to raise. I've got things to do. Jesse's got a farm that he's got cows, he's got chickens, he's got a ton of kids. He's got fields, he's got things to do. To take months off to make a record just does not make any sense to us in our lives right now. So, and the technology is there, and we have the freedom in our careers to just do whatever we want. So this is a really long answer. I apologize.
No, man. No, I'm soaking up a lot of game.
um, it's probably going to be smaller releases, one, two, three, four songs, put out more
Heads up,
casually.
2, 3, and 4. No.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And just put out music as it happens. Let it be more immediate, not have to sit. It's excruciating in a way to work so hard on a thing. Is for Lovers. It took us a year to make. I rented a studio. We got together for a couple of months, and then I took all that music, chopped it into songs, like made it, restructured it, wrote a bunch of lyrics, wrote a thing, made a bunch of songs, kind of as almost like making a puzzle. And then we re-recorded some of it, and then at the end of it, you've got all these songs that you're so excited about, and then you sit on it for a year because of whatever. It's not always COVID. It was like we sat on the physical world for a year because the label wanted to for some reason. You sit on it and you lose momentum, you lose energy, you lose enthusiasm about it, and then it comes out and you kind of have to re-engage with the work, and then you put it out, and only a few songs get attention. People fans like to listen to an LP. I understand that. I like to listen, kind of like to listen to LPs, but there's just songs that just they kind of disappear. They kind of disappear. Some songs just get kind of triangulated out of the conversation. There's just there'll be a song on a record that's maybe one person's favorite song and everyone else likes the other one. So it's like it kind of gets shaded out, and that's it's sad. It's sad.
That's true. Like, cause we're in the playlist world.
Hmm.
Like, music kind of comes out of people's heads. But I will say, from the physical world, I'm hearing cheap talk differently now. I'm hearing the physical world differently now than I did in 2014. So
Why?
there's something to be said about the long player these days. But I see what you're saying. Like, um,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
I'm ready for anything Death from Above, whatever you got, whether it's one song, two songs, four songs, whatever you want to do. Just put it out, share it with the world.
Will do.
Yeah. Sebastian, thank you so much for taking time to talking with me. I've wanted to talk to you for a while. Death from Above is a very important band to me. So, yeah, anything you got to plug, this is your time. Let it fly.
Oh, plugging. Just go to deathfromabove 1979.com. You can go to our merch store. We're actually, if I'm going to plug, we're working on we started working on this merch store earlier in the year, but we're going to have uh, pretty much all the music up there. All the vinyl will be up there, and hopefully we'll be releasing music with kind of merch drop style. Jesse still listens to a lot of rap music, so he has the he has um, that kind of commercial imprint in his mind, like song merch drop, song merch drop. So we're probably into some of that. Yeah, I'm not good at plugging, but I don't know. Come to our shows; they're fun.
That's it.
Yeah,
Exactly. Um, appreciate you, Sebastian. This episode is going to be out this coming Friday. So,
cool.
yeah.
Where are you based?
I'm in New York.
All right. Were you at the
Yeah.
show?
I was at the Webster Hall show. Yeah, it was amazing.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. All right, man.
All right. Take care, man.
See ya. Bye.
My Little Underground.